Right, it's brand new out of the box, so you gotta wear it, where you stay. It is loud. It gets duller as you use it.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, good afternoon, or good evening. I'll go ahead and call the Transportation Authority of Catalina County meeting to order of March 25th, 2026. We get, Madam Secretary, if we could facilitate roll call.
Yes. Eric Stewart.
Present.
Tom Tarkowitz.
Here.
Vivian Davis present. Maya Williams. Here. Amy Evans. Here. Denisha Morris. Here. And Dr. Paul Watts. Here.
Perfect. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Assuming everyone's reviewed the agenda, I'll go ahead and seek a motion for approval of the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. We'll move on to public comments on agenda items. Any public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on in the agenda. To the consent agenda. Is there a flavor to pull anything off the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion for removing the consent agenda. So move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Perfect. We'll move into unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business that we have before us? There is none. Hearing none, we'll move right into new business. And the first thing we have guests. Our auditors are with us online, and the presentation of fiscal year 2025 audit. And that's an action item that we have today. So if our auditors could, or Mal, you want to tee that up for us? I'm sorry.
I will. So first, I will give a hats off to Christine, our Director of Administration and Planning, and then as well as our audit firm, Raymond, who they worked very close together on completing this audit. This is the fiscal year 2025 audit, so that would be the fiscal year that ended September 30th of last year. Keep in mind that was a transitionary period. There was no, you guys know, it's the board, there was no accounting system, there was no, ability to print checks. This board was managing and very much acting as a working board during that time. The audit overall is a clean audit. I will let the auditors give their presentation about the specifics, but overall, I think we're satisfied with the results of the audit. And with that, I will hand it over to Raymond, if you guys want to share your screen.
Thank you. So my name is Jason. Daniel Brewer is joining me as well. We conducted the audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025. And start sharing here. You guys see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So there should have been two documents provided to the board, one being the financial statements and the other being our communication to the board outlining the results of the audit. The financial statements, all that information is really the Transportation Authority's information. We help put together the presentation of that, but all that information is contained in there is the financial records of the authority, with the exception of our audit opinion. So the very beginning of the financial statements, you will come across our audit opinion. As was noted, we issued an unmodified opinion being the best opinion we can provide on the financial statements, meaning we're not aware of any material errors that would result in someone changing their opinion on the financial situation of the authority. The financial statements, again, have more detail on this. If you were to look at page 10 of the financial statements, well, actually, I think there's not really much more detail. As I know this, this is kind of the beginning of the operations of the entity. But total assets, approximately 4.6 million, most of that being cash, and then liabilities being some accounts payable. Unrestricted net position, if those liabilities were paid off, what's left to be used in the future periods. Expenses by category. So for the year ended September 30th, 2025, there was about $400,000 roughly in operating expenses. Most of that being professional services. Revenues for that same fiscal year, the majority of that, 4.8 million of property taxes. During the audit, we did note one other matter for strengthening internal controls for the organization. The bank reconciliation, there were some issues with that being completed timely. Again, I know we understand the organization was getting started, so there were some delays there. So we just recommend that management make sure those reconciliations are completed and reviewed within 6 weeks of the month end. Coming new pronouncements. So the authority next year will have to implement GASB 103 and GASB 104 as well as 105. Now most of these really aren't, I don't see them being a big impact to the organization as far as a big lift on your guys' side of changes in how you're doing things. GASB 103 would probably be the one that's going to be the most impactful. However, we'll assist with those changes. So it's changes in the way the financial statements are presented. So there'll be some slight changes to how the management's discussion analysis is done, and then presentation of some of the income statement items on what line or where they're at, whether they're operating or not operating. And that concludes the presentation we have. Happy to try to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions on the audit from the board? Mallory, can you give some context on the process? I know it was kind of different and what have you, as you stated earlier.
Yeah.
The team responded well and what have you, and recognizing that one finding that we put that in policy and what have you based on the recommendation.
Absolutely. So, the one comment that Raymond did have regarding the bank reconciliation, you'll note that on the agenda today is a bank reconciliation policy that sets a 30-day timeline for all, bank accounts to be reconciled and then presented to the board. I think to the nature of how the authority was operating without a financial system, without the ability to run sophisticated reports like you have today, the board was very much operating on Excel spreadsheets and manual checkbooks. And, Raymond worked with us and mostly Christy to kind of go through all of those documents and the things that they requested and needed to be able to complete the audit. So it was a very manual process. You recall Amy talking about how labor intensive the implementation of the new software was, and a lot of that lift was with the help of Maynard Casterison and them kind of entering that historical data that Linda, Amy, and Maya did such a great job keeping a history of, and then getting it into the financial system. So, for example, you'll note he mentioned in the report that the bank account was not reconciled until November, but that was when we implemented the financial system. So that is why that delay was. Christy, did you have anything you wanted to add? No. Okay, thank you. And I know, Mayor Costerson is on with us as well. I didn't know, Steve, if you have anything?
Think you've come a long way, I think, which is awesome. You've done a lot. Everybody, your board and everybody within the office has worked very hard to get where you're at. So I was very pleased with the way everything turned out.
That's your gap opinion. We've come a long way.
Yeah, that's my professional accounting opinion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments, or what have you, Tom?
What terms are we, how many years do we have, in the agreements for the audit and for financial services? How long is the period?
I believe we have 3, but
Okay.
they're renewable.
Okay, any other questions for the audit?
So
I'd just like to personally thank help we received from Christy, Mallory, as well as Mayor for the audit. I know it was a little more intensive than most audits, as is your first audit ever. So again, just want to make sure to recognize those individuals for the help that they gave us during the audit procedures.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Dr. Watson?
Move acceptance of the audit as presented.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there any support? It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? I'll just say thank you to the staff, and I know that going from a whole 1 year selecting an audit firm, performing, and by Chrissy's behavior, she's ready for the next one. She seemed very comfortable. It's hot. But no, there was a lot to put together, and it wasn't your standard piece. And at no point in time was I concerned. I reached out, of course, as the chair. The audit firm is a direct line to me, and there was never any concern or any communication along those lines. So thank you very much. And from my seat, you all made it easy, but I know it was not. So I appreciate everybody's efforts.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Perfect. We'll move on. We have a couple of resolutions to go through. Item B is resolution 10-2026, which is contract award for employee benefits program.
And thank you to our finance teams. You are welcome to hop on if you'd like. Okay. So resolution 10-2026 is to award Walton Insurance a contract. This is a 3-year contract with the option for 2 1-year renewals for employee benefits brokerage. So they will go to market for us to obtain the employee benefits. We did a competitive solicitation, a request for proposals. We received 4 proposals altogether. 3 of those proposals moved forward, and Walton was selected as the employee benefits portion of that.
Okay. Any questions? Resolution?
One question, in the PDF, it says 3 and 2.
Yes, I corrected that. It is a initial contract of 3 years with 2 1-year renewal options.
Oh, good stuff.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead and entertain a motion for resolution 10-2026.
So moved.
Support.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
On 10, 11, and 14, there were like very small 1-word typos. So just before we put them
Yes.
forward, yeah.
Yes, and Amy did catch those and sent them to me. The one that is published online is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Amy caught that?
Yes.
I was gonna be impressed that Janae caught that, but, yes, Amy is our proof of.
Yes, was that done before this?
Your version is corrected.
Is correct, okay, because I didn't see them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor with those changes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, we'll move on to resolution 11-2026, contract award for property and casualty broker.
Yes, so as part of that same RFP request for proposals, we asked for a property and casualty broker as well. After reviewing again the same 4 proposals, 3 of those moved forward. And it was determined to award to Borges Insurance for property and casualty.
Okay, any questions on the property and casualty information and closing?
This is also a 3-year with 2 1-year renewals.
I entertain a motion for resolution 11-2026.
So moved.
It's been moved, is there any support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. We'll move on to resolution 12-2026, adoption of bank reconciliation policy.
Yes, as we continue developing and revising policies, obviously, as you saw in the audit, ensuring that we have a bank reconciliation policy that remains compliant and demonstrates fiscal responsibility. So this policy, version 1.0, would outline the timeline in which all of the bank accounts would have to be reconciled and presented to the board. That would be Christy and I verifying or reconciling and verifying, signing and dating that document, because you'll note that that was noted in the management letter as well, although we signed it, we did not date it. And that is what this policy would do.
Any questions about resolution 12-2026?
Do you have one, sir? So auditor, they are not, their recommendation was not for 30 days. I know that the policy had 30 days. So my question is, do we have the capacity to be able to respond in a shorter time frame that we're setting for ourselves versus the not recommendation, but the suggested time frame? Correct.
So far, we have not had any difficulty, since then, typically because of the cadence of the board meetings, we haven't had any issue doing it within the 30 days. I'm comfortable with the 30 days operationally, but if you wanted to make a motion to amend that, I would be happy to.
I would prefer to amend it. Just to be aligned with the auditor, because I would not want to put the staff under any additional capacity struggles, even though I do understand that you said that, but I know as we keep on moving, things will get a bit more complex. I don't want to, I would prefer to start at that number and then lower that, as opposed to going the opposite direction.
So are you suggesting 45 days or
6 weeks?
60 days?
It's whatever the auditor recommended. I believe it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
Now, if it's done in 30 days, great.
Great, yeah, I
But
agree. It doesn't hurt to have more breathing room.
But our policy will say, will be 6 weeks and we'll strive for.
Sure.
Yeah,
I support that amendment.
thank you. It's been moved, modified, supported. And you second?
I did not second the initial motion, but this new motion, yeah, I second.
Okay. All right, glad we transcribed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's with changes. All those opposed, same sign. Perfect.
So
Thank-
Dr. Watson made the motion and Janasia
Yes.
Sure, I got this right.
All right, resolution 13-2026, adoption of accounts payable policy.
Yes, so in continuing with that fiscal responsibility, resolution 13-2026 establishes essentially the process and procedures for paying bills. We've already kind of been following this without an official policy. The board approves all of the payments that go out before they go out, unless it's a utility payment or an emergency. This policy just formalizes that as required, including the things that must be included in the board reports. I will make one note that our current report does not indicate the type of payment, whether, for example, it's EFT, ACH, or check. And so I would look to the board to adopt the policy, but with the amendment of removing in section, it was at 6.0, Christine, I believe.
Yes.
Or 5.0, I think there's. Yes, so in section 5.0, it says the AP report shall include the vendor name, invoice number, description, account charge, and amount, as well as payment method such as ACH or check. And our report does not include that information, and so we would ask that you make an amendment to revise the policy to remove payment method.
But we're recording, payment was paid.
Correct.
Yeah,
I would like to move with the amendment.
as stated. With the payment method.
Yeah, with the amendment,
Yeah, okay, I'm just making sure we're talking about one thing.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Perfect. We're moving on to our last resolution of the day, 14-2026. And that's approval of third-party agreement with the MPTA.
Yes. So resolution 14-2026 is a third-party agreement essentially between the Transportation Authority of Capitol County, the Michigan Public Transit Association, and MDOT. We are the third-party recipient of the funds that MDOT holds. And this is specifically for the Rural Transit Assistance Program. So one of the things you'll notice in our board reports and the financial statements as we begin having those expenses that you see, in this last report, a lot more expenses. We have to break those out in between rural services and urban services. MDOT and FTA provide funding specifically to rural transit systems, and this is where we talk about the ability to leverage additional funds that we didn't have before. So the RTAP program, it provides $5,500 each year to use for training or training materials. We typically utilize this funding for things like sending our frontline to trainings, giving them the opportunity to attend conferences or take some professional development courses, and then even the ability to buy training equipment. So MDOT historically increases this funding towards the end of the fiscal year. I wouldn't be surprised to see an amendment come through as we get closer to June, July, to increase the amount of funding. And then, of course, we'd be able to turn around spending that pretty quickly. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Can you define the difference between rural and urban?
Yes, so the city of Battle Creek and its metropolitan area, which touches parts of Penfield, Bedford, Emmett, Springfield, that is considered our urbanized area, our UZA. And that is essentially an area over 50,000 in population. Under 50,000 in population is considered rural. And so our communities of Marshall and Albion give us that rural boost to our funding. where we're able to tap into additional funds specifically for rural transportation. We use a cost allocation methodology, so we use hours of service in the urban area and hours of service in the rural area, and we take the percentages of those and then apply that to our expenses. So as you see our reports, you'll notice that there's an urban category as well as a rural category for each of our expenses.
Perfect.
Quick clarification, so, you said Springfield is still considered urban?
It is.
Population though, if the population is 50K.
The transit funding is based on UZA.
Density.
Yes,
Got it.
so it's like our
Okay.
CAT service
Got it.
area. Yep.
Okay, understood, never mind.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. Madam Secretary.
Yes. When we first started the process, we mentioned third party, but that was for a different type of third party in terms of, or especially for the rural area, that there could possibly be a connection with private transportation programs and TACC. This is not that.
Correct. In that instance, they would be the third party, that other contractor would be the third party. In this instance, we are the third party.
Okay,
Yes, and it's essentially the Michigan Public Transit Association, MPTA, is passing through funds to us.
okay. So if there was such an individual who wanted to do that, would we need another ordinance, another resolution?
Yes, when we get to that point, we intend to engage those local stakeholders and private transportation providers to fill some of those service gaps.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We're ready to call, right?
I move to approve resolution 14. Support.
Been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Excellent. Thank you for your time and attention on those resolutions and the audit. We'll move into public comments on non-agenda items. Any public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none. We'll move right on into board and executive director comments. Communications to the board.
There were no communications to the board.
Great. It includes our online frequently asked questions.
Correct.
Amazing. Okay. Legislative updates. Those are always fun.
So I had the opportunity just this afternoon, to meet with Senator Peters' team. Talking about some of the things that are happening in our community, particularly around the federal center. And then, of course, opportunities for appropriations or earmarks as the budget is being developed. So we were recipients of some congressionally directed spending from Senator Peters in 2024. And although that was directly awarded to the city, it was for the startup of the Transportation Authority. So some of the vehicles that have just been delivered, those were funded by Senator Peters. The marketing efforts as well as the vehicle rebranding, computer equipment, in total, 1.5 million from Senator Peters and another 375,000 from the state of Michigan to provide matching funds to that. When we talk about how transit is impacted and the complexity of our funding structures, I can use the federal center as a prime example of how fragile some of that can be. So I have shared with you before how our 5307 funding works. That is our federal operating assistance for our urbanized area. We can get what are called STIC, Small Transit Intensive City, performance bonuses. So essentially, if we're able to demonstrate that we perform at the same level as a larger urban area, we get a monetary incentive for that. One of those incentives that we get is related to the carpool program operated by the federal center. And that for this fiscal year equates to about $500,000 of additional funding that we get because the federal center has employees that come to work in Battle Creek. Should that close or should those jobs move away, we would lose that stick bonus that we get that's equivalent to 25% of our federal operating assistance. So just some of the conversations that we're having with our elected officials about that impact is more than just the jobs, it impacts the other services. And then there's essentially the trickle down effect of the matching funds that go along with that. So if we lose federal dollars, then that also means we lose state dollars that match that. It isn't just a flat number. Additionally, there's some measures going through the state level that would impact us, related to millages. Although it was not thought to have much luck moving forward, it did pass the House. It's a measure that would limit millages to being only in November. I had the opportunity to meet with Brett Frisbee and his team and kind of talk about what that means for not only us, but all millages, right? So school millages, everything would have to be on the ballot at the same time in November. And operationally and strategically, that is not ideal for us. It also doesn't give us the opportunity to make any corrections. So let's say we were to put our millage renewal on the ballot in November and then it for some reason didn't pass, the next opportunity wouldn't be until the following November. We wouldn't have an opportunity to have a special election just for that. So just some of the legislative things that we're keeping our eye on, as well as I had the opportunity to meet last week with with Shannon, our new grants and procurement manager, and kind of go over how some of that funding works and see that we, are still 6 months into the fiscal year and don't have a federal register yet. We don't know what our appropriations are for this fiscal year that we're currently in, and just how much these things can impact us and how much we operate on assumptions. I think until you're in it, like you guys are now, you really don't understand how politically driven our industry can be, or politically impacted can be.
Okay. Any questions from Mallory on legislative updates?
So I just wondered what Representative Frisbee says.
So we had a good conversation and, again, I think there was a thought that it passed the House, it's political, but it's not gonna pass the state Senate. And now it seems to be kind of growing some more legs than we thought it would have. I think the thought is still that it's leaning more towards it not likely to pass. But yeah, it passed the House.
What other major groups are against it?
I think the largest other group that we know is schools, primarily because of their operating here. It doesn't align with their operating timelines.
Sort of thought.
Yeah.
So I know you have a pretty good relationship with development on BCU and what have you. We're concerned about the impact of federal center, some of these other things of community-wide impact. Have you all kind of collaborated on sending that message out in the same way, the entire community impact? And is some type of letter in order or something along those lines? I don't.
Yes, so BCU was at the meeting I just came from. It was essentially kind of a roundtable for us to all share the different the different areas of expertise that we each bring, as well as the different impacts that it has. I think about not only from a financial perspective for us, but from a human perspective and the people that we take to work every day at the Federal Center. Not just Federal Center employees, but kind of those peripheral employees that, we have a large group of individuals with disabilities that work at the Federal Center and custodial services, and they ride our service every day to get there. So I think painting the broader picture, and then, of course, the economic development piece of public-private partnership to find opportunities to reinvest in the Federal Center.
Any other questions? Quick,
Comment to Tom's question. Every single group that traditionally is apolitical has no interest in being on a November ballot. Because November ballots are traditionally very polarized.
Yeah.
Because of people, D or R, red and blue. If you're apolitical and you are not in that space, the place that especially if it's a social issue in that space is not it's counterproductive to successful vote. How's that for being political?
I appreciate that clarity and that balance of delivery. So, thank you. Any other comments, questions for Mallory on legislative updates? If not, we'll move to consultant updates. Peter or Clark, are they on? I can't see them in this format. So.
All right, I don't know if when Clark will join in, but this is Peter. I was very pleased to hear about the audit results. I think that was a really good presentation also. So I feel that you're on the basis of having a very sound financial framework for the future, especially with some of the policies you adopted today. Over time, our main mission, Clark's and I, is to make sure that the transition is working smoothly and properly. One of the concerns that I always have is that both on the federal and MDOT side, that we are in sync with them, and they are helping us transition fully into being a transit system under the federal provisions and with the state assistance. So I'm very confident that you have the staff to make that happen, but that doesn't mean that we won't be watching to make sure that everything is moving smoothly. Because what you are trying to do as TACC to become a full transit authority on a different basis than the Battle Creek City means that you have to really be very mindful of things. One of the things that always concerns me is to make sure that as you move through the financial portions, purchasing other things under the federal process, if FTA likes what you're doing, you're going to be more successful. Most of the transit systems fail here at some point, and they don't have a smooth process. So that'll be one of the things that I'm concerned about is to make sure that the smooth financial process moves forward in such a way that you will not have problems with FTA triennial reviews, FTA compliance, and all those things. Once again, with staff that you have in place, I think that you're really well positioned to do that because they know what the game is. And so the only thing we're going to do is make sure it goes smoothly, and then we loop back with FTA and MDOT on that process. That's one of the main portions about the transition. I think one of the things that Clark can join in, I think one of the things that we want to make sure is that you actually function as a board fully, and that's really why Clark is aboard in this transition. So I'm shooting it over to Clark.
Thanks, Peter. Couple of comments. I too had reviewed the audit. It looked very good. Difficult first year getting everything together, obviously, as the accountants indicated, and I commend your staff for their work. I've also had conversations within the last few weeks with Senator Peters' office, and nothing specific as relates to TAC, other than I gave them a very positive report back in my conversations with a staff person there as to how things are proceeding with Ride Calhoun. I've had conversations with MDOT folks over the last few weeks. A couple of interesting things happening there. And I don't think you've been directly impacted as much as some other agencies have been. But there has been very slow processing of some contracts with MDOT and transit agencies, primarily due to hangups in Washington, and things processing very slowly. The other thing that's been happening internally at MDOT, and perhaps I don't know that you've heard about this, but MDOT for years has had a management system that they contracted out over a period of the past 2 or 3 years and had a new system built. It is a real struggle, not only for transit agencies to navigate, but in my conversations with MDOT personnel, they are equally frustrated with the new system. A lot of bugs in it that still need to be worked out, hopefully will be before the next annual application process comes up at the period of January, early February next year. But I know a lot of agencies have struggled with that. It has required a lot of time and effort from staff to navigate the new system, and it's also really required a lot of hand holding from MDOT staffers as they've tried to get up to speed as well and help transit agency personnel work through that. So just wanted you to be aware of those issues. We're continuing to monitor, as Peter said, and then finally, we would like to throw out to you once again, and we'll have further discussions with Mallory prior to your next meeting. But we think it would be worthwhile to do another board workshop at some point in the not too distant future. And we'll try to pin down some dates for that, and provide you with the topics that would be covered. But that we still need to get that scheduled. So we'll be working on that over the course of the next month. Any questions?
None here, none for me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak for them. Any questions for our consultant friend? Okay, thank you for your feedback and input, and we'll take a look at some dates for that board workshop period. Peace. All right.
Good.
Okay. Ready to move on now?
Yes, I will note to Peter and Clark's point about the federal grants. So our timing for the triennial review, although inconvenient, is still probably pretty good. In the sense that if we are, as a new authority, if we're able to demonstrate that we are, for example, conducting procurements correctly and we're managing our grants correctly, it'll set us up really well to be able to get some competitive grants. You know, historic knowledge is important too. And so even our most recent grant application, we really try to demonstrate that although this is the first time they're seeing the name Transportation Authority of Calhoun County come across their desk, because for the past 5 years, it's been the city of Battle Creek applying for these funds. It's the same people behind the scenes who have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to manage a grant of that size. So, for example, the last grant request we just submitted was for $31 million to build a new facility. And if we, you know, were successful in that, we would have to make sure to demonstrate that we can handle a project of that size and that we can handle a grant of that size. At one point, we had $30 million in total grants open, and we have that down now to about 17 million. that we anticipate spending both capital and operating over the next 18 months and completely spending that down. So although we're trying to move quickly, which is why you're seeing so many RFPs come across, and so many things going out to, facilitate our startup, making sure we do it right is important.
Question on that. Past performances is important. That's what we're really talking about. Would it behoove us before the assistant city manager's departure, since he's the last person standing with that historical viewpoint, for him to give us some type of document that demonstrates the overlap and his confidence in this staff's ability and being the same, being able to manage those things before we lose that historical piece? Does that make sense?
Like a recommendation letter?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think it could hurt to have something like that. You know, I think FTA is going to have to review and approve our transition agreement anyway, which is currently before the city of Bear Creek and our attorney at Miller Johnson. I think incorporating maybe something like that into that transition agreement, just to demonstrate that, you know, these are all of the people, all of the assets that are moving over to the authority. It's not truly a brand new
Entity, and we left under good terms.
Yeah.
And he supports, granted, this level and our ability to be able to deliver upon those.
Yeah.
And kind of go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be comfortable with that. And it may not be necessary, but it's probably nice to have. As far as I'm concerned. Okay, any other comments? What happened? No, okay, hearing none, our next meeting.
I do. We were gonna add, I think,
You're
it's
right.
the board
comment,
communications,
yep.
you know, you can talk to us, but you don't all have to talk back to you. I thought that was, so yeah, we could add that. But my question is where are we on the timeline on adoption of the fare structure?
That's a great question. I anticipate that coming in front of the board at the April 8th meeting. For you guys to make a decision at that time, not only about the fare structure, but for us to kind of correspond that information to the public with the bringing in of the boundaries of service as well. So keeping in mind that BC Go has operated as a pilot for the last 4 years that has served the entire county. That funding is exhausted now, and we're ready, you know, at this point now it is the TACC providing that service. We are ready to bring that into the jurisdictional boundaries of the authority. And so the proposal that would be coming in front of you in April would be for a July 1st effective date for both of those service changes.
We had talked about holding the third public hearing in Albion. Is that not on the table anymore?
No, I think Vivian has asked about having us do some presentations in Albion. We're gonna go to the public in that sense with communication about the fare structure. Given that Albion has, you know, right now they're paying a $15 fare. They're seeing the largest benefit of it. We aren't gonna hold a public hearing, but we will hold opportunities to engage with the public.
Yeah. Great question, Tom. Any other communications from the board?
Yes, I have a couple of dates for you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing none, our next board meeting is April 8th, 2026, 5:30 p.m. at on the Ride Calhoun campus at the administrative office. All right, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. 6:24. Thank you all. For coming.
I know, right?
That's Valerie and Christie.
Yeah.
Before we go on.
Yeah. Did you receive
Yeah, sounds good.
Good job.